Hey everybody, I hope you're having a great Wednesday out there. I'm Austin Scott, and thank you for joining me on Scott Trot here tonight. So it is episode 3 of the Paddock Party, and I have a special guest for you all tonight. So I have that in the description of the video here. So if you're watching and tuned in tonight, leave a comment for our special guest. If you have something you want to tell Tyler, or also if you have a question for him, you can feel free to comment it, and then I'll ask it here at the end of the video in our open segment. So thank you guys that are already hopping in and joining us here tonight. So again, I'm Austin Scott, and this is my harness racing fan page, Scott Trot. So as I've done in a couple of my other Paddock Party videos, I'll kind of tell you a little bit about who I am and how the inspiration for the Paddock Party got started. So I went to my very first harness race in August of 2015 at the Auglaize County Fairgrounds in Wapak here. That's where I'm from. And I went out with a friend, Brandon Miller, and I really enjoyed it. It wasn't something that I was just way interested in, or it got in my blood right away, but it became something where every year in August when the harness racing fair meet came back to Wapak, I would go out there with Brandon and we would watch, and we did this for many years in a row. And it was finally in 2019, last year's fair meet, that it did start to get into my blood, and I just became more interested, more curious in it. So I reached out to some of the trainers here in Wapakoneta that are stabled there, and also some other drivers and stuff in the industry, and was kind of having them show me the way a little bit and show me the ropes, so to speak. And I've just gotten more and more into it. And since then, I've been trying to get out to the barn every night, and I'm helping Tim Ignarski, a trainer and owner here in Wapakoneta, and then also try to help out some of the other guys. Tony Price, also in the barn. He's one of the first people I reached out to, and one of the first people that gave me an opportunity here in harness racing. So shout out to Tim and Tony for all they've done for me, for sure too. So that's what got me to where I am. And then the inspiration for the Paddock Party was when I was first really starting to get into this, there's just not a whole lot of video content out there about your favorite drivers and trainers and owners that are in the industry. So I kind of felt like this Facebook Live segment would be a cool way to get some more video content out there, so you guys can learn more about your favorite drivers, owners, and trainers, and more people that I'll be interviewing here on the Paddock Party. Or if you're like me, you could be watching this video and you've kind of found a brand new driver that you can kind of follow and root for, and that just makes it a lot of fun when you get to the track and you have somebody you're kind of personally tied to that you can get behind. So that's pretty cool also. So that's a little bit about me, and then the inspiration also for the Paddock Party video series here. So things have been pretty awesome so far and a lot of fun. We got started 2 weeks ago interviewing Chris Presley, and then last week we had Sean Barker on, and then this week we have the Silver Bullet, as he's called by Barry Vickroy, the track announcer for Miami Valley Raceway, Scioto Downs, and Dayton Raceway here in Ohio. It's Tyler Smith. So Tyler's another one of those drivers, like I mentioned with Chris, and I also mentioned with Sean, when I very first started the Scott Trot page last year, they were some of the first people that hopped on board, liked the page, shared it, and then also, wrote me back and said, if there's anything I can ever do for you to help you out, I'm down. So I appreciate all the people in this business that have been like that and been very welcoming and greeted me into harness racing. So I really appreciate it. Looks like we have a lot of people tuning in already, so that's awesome. I appreciate all of you guys. And again, if you have a question for Tyler Smith, comment it here, and we'll ask it at the end of the video here in kind of our open segment. So that would be pretty cool. So I'll be bringing Tyler on here really quickly. One cool thing I wanted to show you guys is I went down to Dayton Raceway for the Buckeye Stallion Series Championships back on October the 3rd, I believe it was. And I actually got one of Tyler's whips, so I was able to hang out after the races, and was able to give me one of these and got a picture taken with Tyler. So again, it's just really cool to meet people like Tyler, like Chris, like Sean, that have been so welcoming of me from day one, along with many other people too. So we're going to try to bring in Tyler Smith here, and hopefully we don't have the technical difficulties we had last week with Sean. So That was something on my end. So let's see if we can add Tyler in. And it does look like Tyler's tuned in. So let me add him in here. There we go. We got it working.
Finally got it on.
Tyler, what's going on, man? Thank you for joining me here on the Paddock Party.
Yeah, anytime.
I appreciate it, buddy. So yeah, I was just talking and gave the people a little bit of an intro about you and how I got to know you and stuff like that, and all the great things that you've done for me and Scott Trot already. So I appreciate it, man.
Oh yeah, anytime. You know that this is what the business needs anymore is young people coming up and more of the, they getting the harness racing out there.
Absolutely, I agree, and we'll talk a lot about that here throughout the video as far as things we can do to help the sport out and promote it some more. So I'll pick your brain on that. But right now, you're actually extremely really busy, and I didn't know this until last week when I hit you up to be on the video. You're racing at Dayton Raceway 5 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then you're actually going down to Pompano in Florida on Sundays for some drives, and then you come back to Dayton Raceway for the 1:30 p.m. card on Mondays. So what is all that traveling like, and what is your schedule like for you right now with all of that? It's got to be a quick turnaround.
Yeah, it's very hectic. It actually was a funny story when it come about. Gabe this summer at Lexington kept harassing me about Florida, and I've always wanted to drive at Pompano. It's been one of my biggest things to go drive at Pompano. And the way it happened was kind of funny, but I fly down on Sunday morning after I race Saturday night and then fly back Monday afternoon to get to Dayton. But, I got 2 more weeks left of it before Miami Valley. I told him I'd stick it out till the first of the year. But, the traveling, it's brutal. When, I have to leave at like 4:30 in the morning, Sunday morning, 4:30 Monday morning, be on the airplane all day and then racing. It's a brutal schedule, but I love it.
That's awesome, man. So getting to experience some new tracks, some new things, and that's really cool. So like I said, I wanted to share that with some of the people watching that maybe don't even know that you're doing that too, and share that with them. So we'll take a trip back in time here a little bit. So for new fans that maybe don't know who Tyler Smith is, can you tell them where you're from and how you got your start in the
I'm
business?
from Washington Courthouse, Ohio. It's actually a really nice location between Ohio because there were about 40 to 50 minutes in between every track. And my whole family's been in it. My mom and dad are my backbone. If it wasn't for them, I would be nowhere. My dad got me started. My mom's had they've had my back through everything. But my whole family's been in it, and like I said, my mom and dad are who I am.
And tell people just who your mom and dad are, because it may be a familiar name to them.
My mom's Kathy Smith, and my dad's Jeff Smith. We right now he has about 25 to 30, but he's trained horses his whole life, and that's how I got my start.
That's really cool. And you shared a special moment with your dad this summer that we'll talk about a little later in the video too. That's really neat. So for you, I'm sure you got your start working with the horses and maybe taking care of them at a very young age. But when did you finally make that transition from being around the horses and working with them to actually jogging and driving them?
Yeah, when I was young, I that's all I've ever wanted to do. I've been around horses my whole life. The barn from when I was 5 years old, I would jog on my dad's lap. I matinated my first horse at 12. I remember going to before I went to middle school and high school. I'd go into the barn, clean stalls, and jog horses. That's all I ever wanted to do. I never wanted to go to school. I actually ended up after my sophomore year, I ended up homeschooling so I could go drive horses and be around horses.
That's pretty cool. So at what point did you actually get into your first race and have your first drive?
My first drive was at 12, actually, in a matinee with Look Lily. But my first fair race was at Circleville. And then my first parimutuel race was actually I turned 21 or turned 18 on my 23rd birthday, which was a Sunday. So that Monday, I drove my first race at Northfield Park for Claire Umholtz.
Okay, gotcha, gotcha. So then, for you, what can you remember about your first win on the
You know,
fairs?
I was actually thinking about that the other day, and the only win I don't think it was my first one, but the win at an early age, one of my first ones, it was on Father's Day at Circleville with one of my dad's horses. It was called Chip Chip Boucher, and for some reason, I don't know if that was my first one, but it sticks out to me.
Well, that's pretty cool. So, what can I guess what can you remember from that first win, and how cool was that for
I
you?
just remember it was on Father's Day, and especially when for Dad and I that's why I don't really remember if it was my first one, but that's the first one of the fairs that actually stuck out to me.
Okay, gotcha. So we got your first fair win under your belt. So, how long were you driving? So you kind of mentioned it a little bit, but how long did you drive on the fairs before you started making your way to the parimutuel tracks?
Well, at that time, even now, you can't get a P license with parimutuel till you're 18. So I drove 16, 17. I drove all them times at the fairs, and then when I turned 18 is when I went to Cleveland.
Okay, gotcha, gotcha. So Cleveland was your first parimutuel track.
Yep, that was where I first started.
Okay. And what did you say your first parimutuel win was?
It was actually on one of Alex Hawk's horses. He owned it because back in the day, me and Alex, because when Dave was back, but it was called Grandma's Guy. It was my first parimutuel win.
Okay, gotcha. And did that come at Northfield then
Yeah, it
too?
was about. I think it was about 4 nights in. It took me to for the first parimutuel one.
Okay, well, good deal, man. So starting off pretty good. So that's pretty awesome. So we talked about your first parimutuel win. For you, at what point did you finally start feeling like you were building a lot of momentum as a driver? You're starting to get a lot more drives, and maybe you felt like you were starting to become someone here on the Ohio
Well,
scene.
when I first started out, it was different than now. We didn't have slot money. I mean, I think our top purse was 4,000 when I first started out at Cleveland. And when I first started, Ronnie Ram wasn't at Cleveland. Aaron was doing the double duty, but wouldn't have. He was at the Meadows more often, and Stahl kind of took a break during the winter. So I kind of fell right into starting to win a lot of races at Northfield, and Northfield everybody watches and you know, they bet a lot of money there, and there's 15 races a night. With Northfield Park, kind of got me on the map, as far as that.
And do you feel like it was that first year when you were 18 that you were really starting to build the momentum, or was it something maybe later on down the
Well,
road?
it's kind of funny, and I was 18. I started actually winning a lot of races at Cleveland, and my mom and dad actually, my dad made me go to Indiana. They said you need to learn how to take care of a horse and drive a horse and not be a cowboy. And they made me go to Indiana, and it did. When I went to Indiana, I got to drive against guys like Dave McGee was there, Pete Rand. I mean, I think there was three guys there at the time that's went over 10,000 races. I didn't win a lot of races and I didn't get a lot of work like I was at Cleveland, but it made me a better driver.
Absolutely. So, driving at Hoosier Park, you're talking about too. Is that where you went at in Indiana
Yeah, well,
then?
at that time it was Hoosier Park, and then it was Hoosier, and then we had to switch meets to Indiana Downs at that time.
Okay. Gotcha. Gotcha. So, we talk about how young you started. You're matineeing horses when you're 12. You're starting to drive at the fairs when you're 16. And right now, you hold the record for being the youngest to 1,000 wins, 2,000 wins, and now in your career, you're up over 3,000 wins. So that's a big accomplishment, and you've accomplished all of this before you were 26 years old. So for you, what do you consider to be your career year? So that could be either a year that you had your most or biggest wins, or maybe a year that you really felt like you were starting to break through, or you had just a bunch of fun in.
I have to say around 2013 was my the year when I went to most races, I got to drive for some really good trainers at Indiana. I mean, Virgil Morgan at the time, Ohio didn't have the slots. He was racing a barn full there. I had Irv Miller, Joe Seekman. I had a lot of good trainers to drive for, and a lot of people supporting me. And I think that was the only time in the last 9 years Trace Tetrick lost the driving title was the year I beat him in 2013. But that year it fell right into place. Like I had a lot of people that supported me and a lot of good horses to drive, and that meant a lot.
So you talk about some of the horses you've gotten to drive. This is throughout your career, not just in 2013, the big year you had. So the three that I feel like are really big horses in your career, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but Let's Drink on It, a horse that you got your first Grand Circuit action on and stuff. Section Line Big Rye, and now Pen Paper Page. What can you tell me about each of those three horses, and what were your experience like with all three, starting with Let's Drink
Oh,
on It?
Let's Drink on It was a dream horse. I got to give all the credit to Joe and Tina Seekman and the owners, Larry Bond and Hal Hewitt, and them. That they put a lot of faith in a 21-year-old that didn't know nothing. I mean, I went to the North American Cup with him, the Jug, I mean, and he was a bad luck horse, whether I drove him bad or he had bad post and still made almost 500,000 as a 3-year-old. But I mean, I got to give all the credit to them for having a lot of faith in me at a young age. And I mean, I wouldn't be the driver I am now if it wasn't for that. It taught me how to drive in the big races, how to take care of a horse the week to week, and the like being second in the Little Brown Jug. If anybody ever got the opportunity to be in a jug, that's one of the greatest. I mean, it was a disappointment losing it, but being in the jug was unbelievable.
That's really cool. And you have some wins also at the Meadowlands with Let's Drink on It too, right?
Yeah, I actually went in 48 and 3, I think, with him the week before the Meadowlands pace. And then, like I said, at a young age, I didn't, I drove him bad in the elimination. We didn't make the final. We come back, he win the consolation and like 49, 25 and a piece on the end of. But like I said, either I drove him bad or we had bad posts, and he still made 500,000.
That's pretty cool. So moving on to the next of those three horses, Section Line Big Rye. This is a horse that when I started following in the summer last year and stuff, this was a horse I kind of latched onto and really liked to. What can you tell me about driving Section Line Big Rye?
It's a funny story. As a 3-year-old, when he come back, I drove him in a little because he fit like I drove him in a series through Miami Valley, and then it ended up coming like the last couple legs before the final. I had actually won a dad's Let's All Rock, who we thought that was going to be our jug horse. He did, he went in like 50 in a piece or 51, 27 flat. Then he got sick, but I took Let's All Rock over Section Line Big Rye as a 3-year-old, and then coming back at 4, I end up getting him. And thank God I got him back. And Steve and Harold Lee's been great to me. They've took me places, and they let me drive the horse the way I want. And he's a dream come true horse. I mean, we had he had some issues on Breeders' Crown night, and it was disappointing because I went into the final thinking, if I get the right trip, he's going to win a Breeders' Crown, and we got the right trip. Just the horse had issues that night, and it's just one of them things. You have your highs and lows.
Was that your first Breeders' Crown this year?
This year, but I drove Let's Drink on it. I got to drive him in the Breeders' Crown as a 3-year-old. But yeah, and then the night before I got a chance to drive a 2-year-old Payson Colt for John Ackley. So I mean, but Let's Drink on. I thought had the best shot. I mean, Section Line Bigger. I thought had the best shot to win, and it just didn't work out.
So your mom actually commented on our video here, and right before you mentioned it, she brought up "Let's All Rock."
I
So
knew
that's
she would.
another big horse in your career. What else can you say about "Let's All
He
Rock"?
he was he's a big pet's what he is. No, but he was a very fast, very, very fast horse, but just had a lot of issues. He stepped on a nail one night at Scioto, and then he got sick. But he held the I don't know if they broke it this year, but he had the track record of Scioto as a 2 year old before this year. He had it at Cleveland. He was a very, very fast horse, and just it was just a very disappointing story with him.
I gotcha. And moving on to the third horse I got mentioned a little bit earlier, Pen Paper Page. So I imagine this season was really special for you and your dad with her. She was a 3-year-old pacing filly this year.
Yeah, that was very sentimental this year. Last year, she was a very good mare. She won the Stallion final, broke track record, Dayton 52. Come back this year, was very good, and then she got sick through the year, and yeah, and she got bad. But I give all the credit to Dad. I mean, she got to where she was wanting to run out, and just wasn't herself. And my dad's the reason we won the final. I mean, he switched things around and turned her around. I mean, I give all the credit to him, and he deserves all of it.
That's really cool. So for you as a driver, was that your first Sire Stakes championship or no?
No, actually, it's funny about I think it was 2015 maybe. I actually went two finals at Lexington for Dad, and the night before, then last year I went two finals, but it was like my third one in Ohio.
Okay. Okay. Cool. So yeah, this year the Jeff Smith trained Pen Paper Page, the 3-year-old pacing filly, Ohio Sire Stakes champion. So that's pretty cool getting to share a moment like that with your dad. So I'm sure that was one of the biggest moments of 2020 for you. And you have a couple streaks on the line. So we only have a couple of weeks left in 2020. But I believe, if my research is right, you have 8 straight seasons of 250 wins and 7 straight seasons of $3 million in earnings. Where do you stand here in 2020 with those, considering the fact that you were off for, maybe a couple months from driving?
Actually, to be honest, I'm not big into stats anymore. I used to be all the time when I was being like the youngest to 1,000 and 2,000. I would look at them, but like anymore, I really don't pay attention much in stats. The only thing I pay attention to is the earnings, you know. But the bigger pictures on the far right column. But with the 3 months off and everything, with everything that happened, I'm just glad we're back racing. And I really don't know how many wins I've had this year. I think I am over 3 million again, and hopefully it'd be, it's a good number to have.
Absolutely. I was putting some of the numbers together from just the 3 tracks in Ohio that you race at a lot: Miami Valley, Scioto, and Dayton. And I think you were really close to 250 wins and 3 million in earnings at just those tracks, let alone the nights you go to, Northfield, Hoosier, Lexington, Pompano, and stuff like that. So I figured you were probably up over on both of those numbers. I figured.
Yeah, like I said, I didn't pay much attention to it, but hopefully I am. I'd like to keep that streak going.
Yeah, that is a great
Mm.
streak to have. So Sean Barker's the one that told me you're the one running around with the notepad, keeping track of your earnings and wins. So I figured you would have that in
Well,
front of
I
you right
do.
now.
I do a lot of for my taxes. Taxes kill me. So this year I started big time on to my travel, more my miles than anything.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So you talk about some of the miles you've been traveling this year, and this is a question I'm probably most excited to ask about after uh, having Sean on last week. So for him, he said when he drives to the racetrack, because you guys carpool a lot, he's more of the country type and likes the Luke Combs and stuff like that. For you, he said you're on the way other end of the spectrum as far as music. What do you like to listen to on the way to the track?
Whatever he listens to, he drives and has the radio. I just sit over there and usually play my games on my phone because every time I start wanting to listen to radio, he complains about it. I'm more like I'll listen to more like the rock and like Big Smo and stuff like that. That's more what I'm into. He's more into the sad, depressing country songs.
He may have mentioned that you listen to some Nelly every once in a
If I
while
listen to
too.
any rap, it's Nelly or 50 Cent or one of them old time. I can't understand this stuff now.
Oh my God, I agree, man. I'm more into 50 Cent and 50 Cent. Nelly's good. Some of Drake's old stuff like that. I really enjoy listening to too. So, but that's pretty funny because yeah, I was definitely not the answer I was expecting because I asked him last week and he mentioned you guys carpool and he's like, yeah, I'm doing the country thing, but Tyler's got club music on and Nelly and all this other stuff.
Oh
So.
yeah, he puts the sad, depressing country music song on when we head there.
Well, I'm glad you're there at least some nights to pick the mood up a little bit and kind of get the blood pumping a little bit. So, for you, again, we talk about all the miles and days of the year you're on the road. It's not often you get an off night like tonight. So, what do you like to do when you have an off day?
Like usually just hang out with my little girl. Like today actually she went and see my brother and down there with my dad and mom tonight. But usually on days off, just hang out with Maven, try to spend as most time with the family as I can. Because like right now it's my only day I get off. Other than that, I'm just especially in the summertime, I work 7 days a week. I try to work 7 days a week. My biggest philosophy has been like, if I'm not working, somebody else is making the money I can be making. So, at a young age and I'm healthy, I might as well do it while I can.
Absolutely. So that's cool getting to spend time at home on nights like this. So, and also for you, a pretty common question, and I like to know about this kind of stuff too. How much prep work goes into your drives on a nightly basis? So, for example, maybe you're looking through programs a lot, you're watching replays and stuff like that. So, how far in advance do you do that stuff before you go out and drive?
I'm a big freak about that. Like right now, I don't really look at much at Dayton or Miami Valley or Scioto. I mean, like I'll look at a program the day of, and everything. But I know almost every horse and every race, like every driver's tendency, every horse's tendency. But if I go somewhere new, like or a new horse comes in I haven't drove, I'll definitely watch what they do and watch horses. But like, I mean, my nights, even when I'm on the way home or when I get home, I'm watching other tracks or other horses. Because you never know where they're going to end up or where they're going to be, or horses that's been racing that's coming here. But I'm a big freak about that. Like I want to know every horse and every race and every tendency on every horse.
And that's really cool. So we have some people that have already wrote in some questions for you about stuff you may see in the program. So we'll get to that here at the end of the video. But we talked about some of your prepping. We've talked about a lot of the off the track stuff. And now I kind of want to get into your thoughts and ideas on things to improve the sport. So the first thing that I have on my list to ask you is, how would you pitch harness racing to somebody that knows nothing about it? So, for example, let's say you have maybe a friend that doesn't really know what you do or has never came to the track. What do you kind of tell them to sell them on coming to the track and watching you race for the first time?
That's a it's a difficult question for me to answer because I'm not much of a guy that sells it. Like the social media is a big thing for me. But in my opinion, the way to get people to the track is you got to have it out there. You have to have where people know about harness racing. You got to have it to where the fans can interact with the horse people. Like the horsemen and like me and Gabe, and I got close with Joe Morris that owns Scioto Downs and Gabe Pruitt. And like they're talking about rebuilding Scioto, which ain't going to be next year, but maybe in the next couple years. And I told him, I said, you guys have to build a paddock to where the fans can interact with the horsemen. And like Hazel Park, I don't know how many people's been there. I got, but a bunch of people's been there. But um, Hazel Park was the greatest place I thought I ever raced at. They had the paddock, and then you walked through a tunnel. You had the clubhouse to your right, the grandstand to your left, but you walked right in between people. You had fans interacting. When you come off the track, fans were there. And I think that's the biggest thing you need. You look at a thoroughbred racetrack and there's fans all over the place. They can be right up on top of it with the action. And harness racing's got away from that. And the biggest thing, like now compared to back in the 70s and 80s, is technology. There's so much technology now. No, they don't have to go to the track because when they go to the track, they can't interact with people and everything like that. But I think if you bring it back to where the fans can interact with be around close to the horses and interact with the horsemen, I think that'll bring a lot of people back to the game.
Absolutely. So for you, is that, kind of what you would tell? I mean, again, we talked about kind of making that sales pitch and stuff. What is it that you love about the sport that you think others, if they came to see it, would fall in love with?
Oh, it's the greatest sport I've ever been in. You can, you're right up on top of the action, but my biggest thing, like if they come to a harness race or something, you have to make it to where, like, if you're pitching like a side of downs or something, you make it like a college night, or you have to wear free beer or something like that, because you got to have it to where you're going to have people. I mean, like you talk about NFL and stuff like that. They got action 24/7. Harness racing is
Mhm.
different. You can't have the action 24/7 because of the way you got to warm the horses up and stuff. But if you give something to where the fans or like the younger generation have something to do in between, or free beer or something like that, you're always going to get people to show up.
Absolutely. So that's really cool too. So you already knocked out a couple of my next questions and stuff like that. One thing I do want to revisit with you is getting people up closer with the drivers, with the trainers, with the horses themselves. So I come from a car racing background where you can come to the track and you can buy a pit pass, and basically what that gets you is access to our backside, if you will, of the track. And I mean, people could walk right up to me and sit in my car or get my autograph, whatever it may be. So, what is, something that can be done like that at the harness races that can get fans up close and personal with you as a driver or some of the horses you're driving?
Yeah, I mean that's the biggest thing. We've got to get to where the fans can interact with the horsemen and drivers. Like even like if you do, say every Saturday night you do like the Meadowlands does, or the end of Sulky, you gotta or the audit, you gotta have people come over sign autographs, ask about horses. I mean, the biggest thing is you gotta have people interact anymore. You got to have the drivers interact with people. The gambling's one is the biggest thing we need. We got to have the gambling. We got to have the money to show where we're making money for the game. And like a lot of times, yeah, the bettors will be mad at us. So they think we drove bad or something like that. We got to be able to, or something to do along that line of being able to have the fans being able to interact with us. But I think like Scioto would be a great place to be able to do that if they could rebuild it to where we're right up beside the grandstand and everything like that. That's what I think we need to progress forward.
Absolutely. And obviously this year is difficult. You're not able to have that fan interaction like you probably normally would, but that's why for me as a fan and somebody that's getting into harness racing more, that's why I like Dayton Raceway so much is you guys have the paddock right, close to the clubhouse area. It's a short distance. So if something could be done, for fans to be able to get back in the paddock and maybe do some kind of tour before or after the races, or drivers can easily just walk on over to the clubhouse side with the fans. If something could be coordinated with that, I think it would be great for the sport
Yeah,
also.
you'd have to go through like, especially at Dayton, Jason with the management and stuff to with all that. But definitely, even like the starting gate rides. I mean, fans would love that. We got 14 races night. Give out or have a drawing for, you know, anything to let two people ride in a starting gate every race. I mean that's how you bring people involved and have people come back, or say you have two people riding a starting gate that love it, then they got friends or they got families, they bring them to the track.
Right.
That's how you're going to interact more people.
Absolutely. So I like that idea of the starting gate
Yeah,
also, and
big thing
I'm sure
starting. I
that's
mean that because they're right up close. The starting gate's one of the greatest places to ride in. I mean, you're right up close. You're right in the action. I mean that's that's be awesome for the fans.
yeah, that'd be really fun. So that's a great idea, and I'm sure Mike Webkenberg would be more than
Oh,
happy
he
to
would
do
be more
something
than
like
happy to do that.
that. So that's really cool. So one of my last questions, and then I'll kind of open things up for some of the fans that ask questions and stuff like that here on Facebook. But for you, why should harness racing fans root for you as a driver and make you one of their favorites? So this is first time I've asked this, and it's kind of a question you got to really think about, but. And you might have to pat yourself on the back a little bit during this, but what is something you think the fans like about you going forward?
Well, one thing about me is I always try. I literally, I think when I go out on the racetrack, if I'm driving 14 horses a night, I own that horse for 5 minutes. I own 5% of that horse for 5 minutes. I always try to put my horse in the right spot to win or make the most money for the owners and trainers. The owners, trainers, and the grooms and trainers don't get enough credit. Like today when it's snowing out there and it's miserable out, them horses still got to be worked. They still got to do their job, and you still got to do your job. But if it wasn't for the owners or the grooms and trainers, got no shot as a driver. I mean, I don't care what kind of driver you are. If the grooms and trainers ain't doing their work for the week, we sit behind them for 7, 8 minutes at tops, 9 minutes at tops. If they're not doing their work, I don't care who you are. You're not going to be. If they didn't get out all week, that'd be like you trying to go out and run a mile when you haven't even practiced all week. I mean, the grooms and the trainers deserve a 99% of the credit, in my opinion.
Absolutely, and I agree, man. You're somebody that's going to give it 100% every time you're out on the track, regardless of what horse it is, what race it is, and for me personally, if I can share with you too, you've become one of my favorite drivers also. And again, like I talked about at the beginning of our video, from the day I started Scott Trot, you've always been on board, sharing stuff, liking my page. All that, doing this interview tonight. So obviously, your interaction with me as a fan is really cool. And then also, I showed it before we got started too. I still got the whip from Dayton Raceway that night. So I think this was the same night that you drove Snow Moon to the Buckeye Stallion Series Championship. So that's a pretty cool keepsake for me. But yeah, that's definitely what I like about you too, man. Is really good with the fans and stuff. And then also, I'm 24 and you're 26, so it's really cool to see a driver really similar to me in age having such success. So that's really cool for you too, man. So appreciate you on the video, and right now we'll open it up to the open questions segment if you're up for that. So we have somebody that tracked down your stats for you, Tyler.
Oh boy.
So Randy Bond did a little researching, and you have over 2,200 starts this year. You have 265 wins, so you're going to extend that streak to, I believe, it's 9 years now, 9 straight years of 250 or more wins. You have 285 seconds, 310 thirds, and you're nearing $3.4 million in earnings. So that's going to take you to 8 straight years of $3 million in earnings or more also. And then your UDRS is at
That
235.
could be a
So
little
I
higher.
would say I
I try to keep that
I
one
would
out
say
of the picture.
I would say I'd say that's still a pretty solid year, man, for a couple of months off to still continue your win streak and your earning streak is pretty awesome.
Yeah, like I said, I got to give all the credit, to the owners and trainers and, like the grooms. I mean, they're the reason why I get to drive every single night. They especially the owners and trainers, put me out there and trust me with their horses. So
You have somebody here on the video talking smack. Ron Van Wagoner says below average
tell him
UDRS.
it is. That's like Michigan's average.
Oh man, you fired back, Ron. So you got to watch it on here. Tyler's coming for your head right now. So we have another fan question. Jason Brunwasser, I apologize if I said his name wrong, asked, when are you coming back to the Big M?
Right now it's Ohio. I'm not even, that right now the Big M's tough. I mean, you got George Napolitano. I mean, Todd McCarthy, Andrew. It's a tough place to be. But hopefully, I think the Breeders' Crown's back out there next year. I got a 2-year-old Payson colt. Hopefully, I'm looking forward to coming back next year of John Ackley. So you never. Hopefully, I get the opportunity next year to go out there.
Absolutely. So, another fan question we had comes in from Tim Ignarski, and he asks, as a catch driver, when you're listed on multiple horses, what goes into your decision about what horse to drive? So, is there something in the program that makes your decision, or who the trainer is, or things like
That's the
that?
toughest part of my job is choosing horses because no matter what, you're gonna make someone mad or you're gonna disappoint someone. And not that you're thinking the other horse is better than theirs, but my biggest, I'm more if I'm driving a lot for a guy, that goes into biggest consideration. And but most of the time I try to take the best horse. You get put on horses because you win races. So I mean, if you're not winning races, people don't put you on horses. But I try to stay loyal as most part of it.
Okay, absolutely. So, um, another question that we have here. Let me see if I can get it. So, Tim Ignarski wrote in with multiple questions, so we'll get to them. So, one of his other questions was for you: is it easier to drive a horse on the front end or trying to come from behind?
Depends on the horse. A lot of them. I mean, every driver would rather be on the lead and just not catchy, but it just depends on the horse. You know, it depends on their style. Me personally, I'd rather race one off the pace and be able to be second or third over and be able to win that way. But anymore, the game's such a speed game. If you ain't close to the front, it's tough to win. I mean, everything's got to fall back into your lap. But you have to adjust to each horse you drive.
Absolutely. So you talked about being second and third over. The last question we got from Tim is during the race for you, what factors go into deciding when to pull a horse to the outside?
Well, it's kind of different in Ohio. You have to move early here for some unknown reason. I guess that's the way I guess we drive here. But you know, but um, you got to drive your horse. You got to drive the way your horse feels and the way he races. It's hard for a horse to be out the way we race him here. I mean, half the time we're out at the quarter pole and we shouldn't be. But that's just the style racing here. But I go by the way I think my horse needs to be raced.
Absolutely. So we do have a more complex question. We'll see if you want to attack it or not from Randy Bond. He wanted to ask if there should be a change in the purse structure for you. So instead of having 50% at the top for a win, he's asking maybe if it should be 45 and then start spreading it out through the top five. So for you, do you think that would maybe entice drivers to maybe get more focused on getting a check than winning at all cost, or what do you think of the purse
No, I
structure?
think the purse structure is good. I mean, the way it is. Us as drivers with the money we go for. I mean, we all try. I mean, it ain't back like 20 years ago or 10 years ago when they was going for no money, where a lot of the gambling between the drivers and all that was going on. Nowadays you go for too much money. I mean, you in my opinion, everybody's trying to win. I think that's why they drive so hard here in Ohio is because everybody's out in the I mean, everybody's out moving. But no, I think the purse structure is perfect here the way it is.
Absolutely. So we got that. I'll see if we have any others. We're getting a lot of comments about your
Yeah, I figured
DRS, so
that.
we'll let those be. So we got a lot of haters out there that are giving you a hard time on here right now. But so I'll see if we got any other questions. I think we've pretty much hit all of them that we have on here so far. So that's good. And so one last thing before we leave tonight that I wanted to ask you as far as looking into the future, what long-term career goals do you have for yourself, and what do you want your legacy to be when it's time that you hang it up as a driver?
My dream throughout my career has been able to be going to the Meadowlands. Be one of the top. Maybe I missed that opportunity when I had a chance at a younger age with Let's Drink on it. Now I got a daughter and a family, and um, so I'm just gonna play it year by year. But with the money we're going for in Ohio, my biggest thing is just stay healthy and be able to work every day. I'm blessed to be able to drive horses. I mean, that's what I've loved for my whole life, and I'm blessed to be able to do that.
Absolutely, man. So 26 years old, we've talked about all the success that you've had so far. And, I think that's super cool. And I want to wish you a great rest of your career, hopefully many more years of success. And I hope you can extend this 250 win and $3 million earning streak all the way until you retire. That
As
would be
long as we
awesome.
bring that UDRS up a little bit, that would be a little bit better.
That's right, man. We'll work on that. I'll give you something to shoot for in
There you go. Maybe
2021.
that's
So
what I'll
Tyler,
shoot for.
there you go. That's awesome. So hopefully big things in 2021 in your future. So again, Tyler, thank you a lot for joining us here tonight. And for all the people that are watching, if they're already an existing harness racing fan or maybe a new fan like me, hopefully after they watch this video, they leave saying, I'm now a Tyler Smith fan. So that would be pretty
Yeah,
cool.
hopefully this thing keeps going and you can get more people to join. And that's like I said, we need more people in harness racing, and I think this is a great way to do it. So hopefully this thing keeps going on.
Absolutely. Well, hey, get on your brother Trevor about getting on the show here. So I'm trying to get him on, but haven't heard back yet. So give him a hard time for me, and maybe harass him into being on the
We'll
next
definitely
show.
get some people on for you.
Hey, I appreciate it, Tyler. Hope you have a great night, and thanks for joining me on the Paddock
Hey,
Party.
thanks anytime.
Hey,
Yep.
see you, bud.